Warning, the following contains nothing but spoilers for Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations. One day, veteran lawyer Diego Armando was tasked with helping Mia Fey during her first trial. It was a complete disaster, but Diego was enamored by Mia's faith in her client and the two started dating. Sadly, Diego was careless while interrogating the true culprit. He didn't notice that she slipped poison into his coffee, causing him to fall into a coma. 5 years later, Diego awoke to find Mia had been murdered. With nothing left, he became a prosecutor so that he could face off in court against Phoenix Wright, the man he despised for failing to protect Mia Fey. I have a vast collection of games with interesting narratives that I plan to analyze, but Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations is, without a doubt, my favorite story ever told in a video game. Right away, the introductory case is drastically more interesting. It takes place 5 years in the past, and you control Mia Fey during her second case in her career. And the defendant for this case? Why, that would be Phoenix himself, showing us how they met. His actions during that case are pretty naive, but amazingly, he has a very good reason for trusting such a dangerous criminal. That's the other big difference with this game. It shows off the main antagonist right away. Dahlia Hawthorne, the cold-blooded murderer, more ruthless and more manipulative than either of our previous villains. Her theme song, Distant Traces of Beauty, represents her perfectly. An innocence so extreme that it can only be artificial. What I find especially compelling about her character is that her killings are not part of some master plan, nor is she portrayed as some invincible opponent. Dahlia is just an extremely cruel human being who will gleefully smile while an innocent man commits suicide while on trial for a murder she committed. The fact that she's so down to earth makes her inhumanity stand out all that much more. Just like before, Cases 2 and 3 feature their own self-contained stories that are thematically connected to the rest of the game. Both have instances of mistaken identity and different types of romantic relationships as motifs. As far as standalone stories go, they are both fairly compelling with a great cast of characters. Case 2 especially is notable for not actually being about a murder this time. At first. It's also a hilarious case with a ridiculous ace detective who plays the part of his own arch-nemesis Master Thief. But the best part of this game stands right across from you in court. Once again, even though you play as Phoenix Wright, this is the story of Prosecutor Godot. Look up any top 10 Ace Attorney characters list, and I guarantee you he's on there, often at the #1 slot. So, what makes Godot so fascinating anyways? Mostly, it's the fact that he's an incredibly flawed person. Over the course of the game, he's passionate, intelligent, and very self-confident. But he's also arrogant, inflexible, and deeply sexist, believing that it is a man's responsibility to protect women. It's this flawed ideology which causes him to blame himself for Mia's death. Unable to admit this to himself, he wants to see Phoenix fail just so he can shift all the blame onto him. So much of Godot's behavior is unacceptable, yet you can't help but sympathize with him every step of the way. Just like the first game, this story works well specifically because we play from the perspective of Phoenix Wright. At first, all we see is Godot's negative attitude and hatred of Phoenix without knowing his reasoning. At this point, our natural reaction is, what the hell is this guy's problem? Neither Phoenix nor the player have any idea why Godot has such an intense and personal grudge. At this point, it's easy to dismiss him as just some obnoxious prosecutor. That is, until Case 4, where you play from Mia's perspective and discover the man behind the mask. This is very similar to the narrative of the first game, but rather than have Phoenix just tell us about Godot's backstory, they show us what he used to be like through the eyes of Mia Fey. And this leads directly into Case 5, the grand finale, where Dahlia and her mother put into motion their plan to murder Mia's sister, Mia Fey. It's a spectacular ending. Every character gets their fitting conclusion, and mysteries that span the entire series are finally resolved. You even get to play as Miles Edgeworth, who acts as defense attorney with Franziska von Karma as prosecutor. Miles' inner monologue fits his character perfectly, and his reaction when confronted with Psychlocks, or as he calls them, Psycholocks, is especially amusing. At the end, after many twists and turns, the true killer is finally revealed. But it's not Dahlia, it's Godot. Soon, all that's left is the final contradiction. Suddenly, the original Cornered theme song begins. The stakes are at their highest. Any wrong evidence will be an instant game over. But, as you present your final evidence, something very strange happens. The music doesn't stop. Throughout the entire series, this was a very clearly established rule. If the music stops when you present evidence, then that means you got it right. Yet in this one instance, no matter what you present, the music continues and Godot says exactly the same thing. This is an excellent example of representing narrative through gameplay. Godot specifically challenges Phoenix to solve this contradiction without relying on Mia's help. The gameplay represents this by taking away the audio cue that you, the player, have been relying on this whole time. As a result, when you hear the music continue, you'll probably feel a genuine sense of doubt. Did I get it wrong? Some of you may instinctively reset your DS or load up a save state, but the only way to succeed is to accept the possibility of defeat and let the scene play out. Even the fact that Godot says exactly the same thing is justified in the narrative. He doesn't care what you present. He desperately wants Phoenix to fail so he can blame him for Mia's death. But if you got it right, Godot will see the spirit of the woman he loved and realize that he's been projecting his feelings the whole time. It's a heartfelt scene, especially when he acknowledges that his actions weren't really to protect Maya, but a combination of revenge against a woman who ruined his life, along with a selfish desire for personal redemption. What happens to him afterwards is intentionally left vague, although the last picture in the game would imply that he was given the death penalty. In all the games I've played, I've never seen a character as complex and believable as Godot. He's done unforgivable things and made some incredibly poor decisions, yet you understand exactly why he did what he did. There is so much depth to his character, and if you'd like to learn more, I'll provide a link in the description to an essay called Examination of Godot. The best part about this story is that it works specifically because it's a video game. The interactive elements reinforce the story by allowing you to put the pieces together yourself. In fact, there are some very subtle clues to Godot's identity throughout the game. In Case 1, Mia receives a file about her boyfriend's murder. The name of the victim is Diego Armando. In Case 2, Godot reacts very strangely when he sees Mia's channeled spirit, hinting at their relationship. Then, in Case 3, we learn that his visor glows in the dark, and more importantly, we learn that Godot cannot see the color red on a white background. This physical weakness does lead to his eventual demise, but Godot cannot see red is also a metaphor for his greatest character flaw. Even in the end, Godot blamed himself because he cannot see the person truly responsible for his girlfriend's death. But if you remember the first game, then you already know that the name of Mia's killer is Red White. And that's all for my analysis. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.